Welcome to the majestic world of elephants, Earth's largest land animals. These incredible creatures roam vast savannas and dense forests, embodying strength and grace. Elephants are renowned for their profound intelligence and complex social structures. They live in close-knit family units, guided by experienced matriarchs. Join us as we journey into their lives, exploring their unique characteristics and habitats. First, we encounter the magnificent African elephant, easily recognized by its immense size. They have distinctive large fan-shaped ears, which help regulate their body temperature. Both male and female African elephants typically possess impressive tusks. These elongated incisors are vital tools for digging, foraging, and defense. Witness herds migrating across the Golden Plains, a breathtaking spectacle of nature's grandeur. Observe the tender bond between a mother and her calf, a testament to their strong family ties. At watering holes, these gentle giants gather, interacting and quenching their thirst. Their diet primarily consists of grasses, leaves, and bark, making them crucial ecosystem engineers. By clearing paths and dispersing seeds, they help shape the landscapes they inhabit. Now, let's travel to Asia, home to the Asian elephant, a species with distinct features. Asian elephants are generally smaller than their African cousins, with more rounded ears. Only some male Asian elephants grow tusks, and they are often shorter. They thrive in diverse habitats, from lush tropical forests to grasslands. Here, we see them navigating dense foliage, a stark contrast to the open savannas. Many Asian elephants hold deep cultural and historical significance, revered in various traditions. Conservation efforts often involve sanctuaries, where rescued elephants find refuge and care. Elephant societies are matriarchal, led by the oldest and most experienced female. She guides the herd, sharing her wisdom and leading them to food and water sources. Their communication is incredibly sophisticated, involving a range of vocalizations. From deep rumbles that travel miles to loud trumpets, elephants express emotions. Body language also plays a crucial role, with ear flapping and trunk movements. These intelligent beings display remarkable problem-solving abilities. They exhibit strong empathy, mourning their dead and comforting distressed herd members. The bonds within an elephant family are lifelong, characterized by mutual support. Young calves are nurtured and protected by the entire herd, learning essential survival skills. Their complex social lives underscore their emotional depth and cognitive prowess. Despite their majesty, elephants face severe threats, pushing many populations towards endangerment. Poaching for ivory remains a devastating challenge, driven by illegal wildlife trade. Habitat loss and fragmentation, due to human expansion, shrink their living spaces. This leads to increased human-elephant conflict, as both species compete for resources. Elephants often raid crops, leading to retaliatory actions from communities. Climate change also impacts their habitats, altering food and water availability. These challenges highlight the urgent need for global action to protect these iconic animals. Without intervention, future generations may only know elephants from pictures. Yet, there is hope. Dedicated conservationists and communities are working tirelessly. Rangers patrol vast reserves, protecting elephants from poachers and monitoring their health. Community involvement is key, educating locals and fostering coexistence strategies. Rehabilitation centers provide care for orphaned or injured elephants, giving them a second chance at life in the wild. International collaborations and anti-poaching initiatives are making a difference. Every effort, big or small, contributes to safeguarding their future. Protecting elephants means preserving entire ecosystems and our planet's biodiversity. Elephants are more than just large animals. They are symbols of wisdom, strength, and family. Let us all commit to protecting these magnificent creatures, ensuring their survival for generations to come. Their future depends on our actions today.
You've seen them, right? On TV, maybe even in real life. The gentle giant, the animal that never forgets. But honestly, that's just scratching the surface. What if I told you the elephant you think you know is one of the most complex, intelligent, and socially sophisticated creatures on the entire planet? So let's just start with this idea. Imagine for a second, what if your nose could also act as your hand and a snorkel and a megaphone? It sounds like something out of a comic book, right? But for an elephant, that's not some wild thought experiment. That's just their trunk. So here's the journey we're going on. We'll start with their incredible anatomy, then dive into their super tight-knit families. After that, we'll get into their legendary minds, and finally, we'll look at why these giants are so important for the balance of our world. Let's do it.
All right, first up, the ultimate toolkit. We are talking about a body that isn't just huge, it is an absolute masterpiece of biological engineering.
Look at this number, 150,000. What is that? Well, that's how many individual muscle units are packed into a single elephant's trunk. Now, to give you some perspective, your entire body has just over 600 muscles. That incredible density is the secret to everything that amazing trunk can do. It's just mind-boggling.
All that muscle makes the trunk a kind of biological multi-tool. I mean, it has the raw power to lift massive logs, but it also has the delicate precision to pick up a single blade of grass without breaking it. It's a snorkel for swimming and a megaphone for rumbling to the herd. It is truly one of the most versatile tools in the entire animal kingdom.
And then, of course, you've got the tusks. Now, these aren't horns, they're actually massive, ever-growing teeth. Yeah, they're used for defense, but they're also vital tools for digging for water, marking up trees, and literally carving paths through the forest.
So that's the individual animal. But here's the thing, an elephant is never really just an individual. Their entire life is defined by these deep, unbreakable bonds with their family.
You see, elephant society is matriarchal. Everything, and I mean everything, revolves around the oldest and wisest female. She's not just a leader, she's like the herd's living library. Her memory holds the keys to everything, where to find water during a drought, the safest routes to travel, and all the social rules.
And inside this society, life plays out on two very different tracks. The females, they stay with the family they were born into for their entire lives, building these incredibly deep, multi-generational bonds. But the males, the bulls, they actually leave the family when they're teenagers and they live mostly on their own or in small bachelor groups.
So what holds this whole complex society together? A communication system that's just as complex. They use everything from loud trumpets that we can hear to these deep rumbles. It's called infrasound, that are so low we can't even hear them, and they can travel for miles through the ground. Every single flap of an ear or touch of a trunk is part of this rich, constant conversation they're always having.
And that leads us right to what elephants are most famous for, their minds. You know the old saying, an elephant never forgets? Well, it turns out it's way more than just a cliche. It's actually the key to their survival, and it hints at this incredibly deep cognitive and emotional world. Just let that sink in for a minute. This isn't just a cool feat of memory. This is an act of incredible leadership and absolute trust, where the survival of her entire family depends on the living map that's stored inside her mind. It's just a perfect example of their brain power.
The science behind this amazing ability has a name. It's called cognitive mapping. Elephants don't just remember random facts. They build these detailed, three-dimensional maps of their entire world inside their heads, charting out everything from watering holes and good places to eat to areas they know are dangerous. And their intelligence goes so far beyond just memory. I mean, scientists have documented behaviors that point to a really deep emotional capacity. They've been seen performing what look just like mourning rituals, showing empathy by comforting other elephants who are upset, and even using tools like using a branch as a fly swatter and solving surprisingly complex problems.
So, we've got this brilliant, social, incredibly powerful animal. But why does that matter for everyone else beyond their own herd? Well, it's because elephants aren't just living in their environment, they are its main architects.
This is the crucial idea here. Elephants are what's known as a keystone species. You know, like the keystone in a stone arch. If you pull that one stone out, the whole arch collapses. It's the same thing here. So many other species depend directly on elephants for their own survival. So how do they do it? Well, they are literal ecosystem engineers. As they travel around, they spread seeds in their dung, basically planting entire forests. When it's dry, they use their tusks and feet to dig for water underground, creating little oases that all the other animals can use. Even the paths they make through the forest act as fire breaks and highways for countless other creatures. But these vital engineers are under enormous pressure. Pretty much all the major threats they face, from poaching for ivory to conflict with humans, they're all driven by us. But the single biggest issue, as you can see here, is habitat loss. As our world gets bigger, theirs gets smaller, and that puts the future of these incredible architects in real danger. And that brings us right back to where we started, memory. We know that elephants never forget. As their future becomes more and more tied to our actions, the real question is, how are they going to remember us?
You know, when we think of elephants, we usually picture these gentle giants with, of course, an incredible memory. But what if I told you that famous memory is just the opening chapter of a much deeper, much more amazing story? Today, we're going to get inside one of the most complex minds on the entire planet and see what's really going on in there. Let's start with just one number. 11 pounds. That's the average weight of an adult elephant's brain. Now to put that in perspective for you, that is by a long shot the biggest brain of any land animal on Earth. It's absolutely massive. But of course, size isn't everything, right? So what does all that raw power actually translate to? I mean, what can this huge, complicated organ really do when it's out there in the real world? Well, that's the big question we're going to tackle today. So here's how we're going to do it. We're going to build this picture up layer by layer. We'll start by going way beyond that famous memory. Then we'll get into their incredible social intelligence, their knack for problem solving, and finally, we'll explore their surprisingly rich emotional world. All right, let's dive into section 1, Beyond Perfect Memory. Because let's be honest, when you think about how smart an elephant is, there's one phrase that pretty much always comes to mind first. You know the one, an elephant never forgets. We've all heard it. But I'm here to tell you that this little saying, it might just be the biggest understatement in the entire animal kingdom. Their memory is so much more than just not forgetting things. And this is what's truly mind-blowing. For an elephant, memory isn't just some dusty old filing cabinet. It is a living, breathing survival tool. We're talking about recalling a specific waterhole they haven't seen in 20 years, across hundreds of miles. They recognize hundreds of other elephants and people just by their scent and face, and they keep track of this incredibly complex social map. Who's who, who's a friend, who's a rival, and yeah, who they have a grudge against. And that incredible memory, well, it's the foundation for something even more impressive. It's what allows them to build one of the most sophisticated social worlds on the entire planet, which brings us to our second section, the social genius. At the absolute center of this elephant society is the matriarch. Now, she isn't the leader because she's the biggest or the baddest. Nope. She leads because her mind is a living library, packed with decades of experience and survival knowledge. She guides her entire family using wisdom, not just brute force. You can really see how special their society is when you put it side by side with other social groups. On the left, you've got the elephant herd. Leadership based on knowledge, deep, lifelong bonds, even making decisions together. Now, compare that to your more typical alpha setup on the right, which is all about physical strength and aggression. It's just a totally different, and you could argue a much more advanced way to live. So, just how complex are we talking? Well, this number helps put it into perspective. An elephant can keep track of its individual relationship with about 300 other elephants. I mean, stop and think about that for a second. Think about your own social circle. That is an insane amount of social data to be processing constantly. Okay, so they've got this incredible memory and these complex social lives, but they don't just remember their world, they actively change it. And that brings us to section 3, the problem-solving mind. This is where we see real strategy, real planning, in action. Just look at this fantastic documented case of their ingenuity. An elephant wants a mango, but it's just too high to reach. It doesn't just give up. First, it assesses the situation. Then, it identifies a nearby log as a potential tool. It then purposefully rolls the log into the perfect position, and finally, it carefully steps up and gets the prize. I mean, that's not instinct. That is a multi-step plan that shows real foresight. And their toolkit is surprisingly big. They use big branches as fly swatters, which is pretty clever. They'll dig their own wells for water and then, get this, they cover them with bark so the water doesn't evaporate. They've even been seen dropping heavy rocks on electric fences to short them out. That is just pure adaptable intelligence at work. So we've seen their memory, their social smarts, and their problem-solving skills. But the most profound part of the elephant mind might just be what's going on inside. And that brings us to our final section, the emotional world. I'm just gonna let this quote from the legendary researcher, Dr. Cynthia Moss, sit here for a moment. She's describing elephants finding the bones of another elephant. They fell silent, gently touching the bones. It was a moment of quiet, unmistakable grief. Wow. It's really, really hard to interpret that as anything other than a deep, genuine, emotional response. And it isn't just about grief. Researchers have seen this whole spectrum of behaviors that point to really complex emotions. They'll rush over to comfort a friend who's upset, making these low, rumbling sounds. They have these loud, joyful, trumpeting celebrations when they reunite with family. They've even been seen showing what looks an awful lot like empathy for other animals. And this is a big one. They play, not just as kids, but as adults, which points to a real capacity for joy. So we started this journey with an 11-pound brain, and we've ended up with a creature that remembers, socializes, strategizes, and feels deeply. Which leaves us with one final, pretty powerful thought. It's really a question for all of us. If a species can think and plan and feel on this profound level, what does that ask of us? What's our responsibility to a mind like that?
All right, today we are diving deep into the world of a creature that is just as intelligent as it is massive, the elephant. Seriously, get ready to see this titan of the animal kingdom in a completely new light.
Okay, let's just start with this number, 40,000. So, what is that? Well, that's how many muscles scientists estimate are in one elephant's trunk. To put that in perspective, your entire body has just over 600. I mean, we are talking about an appendage that is an absolute marvel of evolution.
So, here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll get into the body of a titan. Then, we'll explore their complex social network. After that, we'll look at the mind of a sage, and we'll wrap things up by facing an uncertain future.
Let's jump right into section 1, the body of a titan. And while their size is obviously the first thing you notice, an elephant's body is this incredible masterpiece of specialized adaptations, all finely tuned for survival. It's so much more than just sheer bulk. So, let's start with that amazing trunk. The technical term is a proboscis, but just think about what it is for a second. It's their nose and their upper lip fused together into this single, highly flexible appendage. It's a biological structure that gives them a tool unlike anything else on Earth.
And just look at this toolkit. It's a snorkel they can use to breathe underwater, a hose that can suck up 4 gallons of water in one go, and yet it has the delicacy to pick up a single berry without crushing it. They use it to communicate with deep rumbles, and it's powerful enough to lift over 700 pounds. It is the ultimate multi-tool. No question.
Okay, what about those famous ears? Well, they're not just for hearing, not by a long shot. See all those blood vessels? By flapping their ears, elephants basically run that blood through a radiator, cooling it down and regulating their entire body temperature. It's literally a personal, built-in air conditioner. How cool is that?
And of course, not all elephants are created equal. You can spot the differences pretty easily. African elephants? They have those huge ears shaped kind of like the continent of Africa. Asian elephants, on the other hand, have smaller, rounder ones. And then there are the tusks. You'll see them on both males and females in Africa, but typically it's just the males in Asia.
Okay, so we've got the hardware down. Now let's get into the software. Their incredible social world. This is where things get really fascinating, because their lives are defined by some of the most complex and powerful bonds in the entire animal kingdom.
So it makes you wonder, right? When you see a group of these absolute giants moving together, who's calling the shots? Who's in charge of making the life or death decisions for the whole group? The answer, and this is so cool, is the matriarch. She is the oldest, most experienced female, and she is the absolute rock of the herd. Her leadership isn't about being the strongest. It's about wisdom, memory, and social smarts that she's built up over a long, long life.
And this is how it all works. The matriarch is basically a walking, talking library of survival knowledge. She's the one who remembers where to find that hidden water source during a brutal drought. She teaches the younger ones how to deal with threats and which ancient migration paths are safe. The entire herd's survival literally rests on what she remembers.
And that memory, that knowledge, it leads us right into our next section, the mind of a sage. Because the kind of social complexity we've just been talking about, well, it's only possible because of some serious intelligence and, as a lot of scientists now believe, a really deep capacity for emotion.
So what's actually going on inside that huge head? Well, an elephant's brain weighs around 11 pounds. That's more than 3 times the weight of our own. But it's not just about size. The parts of the brain responsible for memory and emotion, like the hippocampus, are incredibly well developed. This is the neuroarchitecture that powers their famous memory and what seems to be a complex emotional life. And you can see the proof of this brilliant mind all over the place. I mean, they use tools like using a branch as a fly swatter. They can solve complicated puzzles to get a treat. And this one is wild. They recognize themselves in a mirror, a sign of self-awareness that very few animals have. And maybe most moving of all, they've been seen gathering around the bones of other elephants in what really looks like a ritual of grief or mourning. So, you know that old saying, an elephant never forgets? It's not just a cute phrase, it's a hardcore survival strategy. They remember which people have been kind to them and which have been cruel. They remember where that hidden water source is from 20 years ago. Their memory is their map and their history book, all rolled into one.
Which brings us to our final and honestly our most sobering section, an uncertain future. Because for all their power, for all their intelligence and deep social connections, elephants are facing some really monumental challenges in our modern world. This chart lays out the big 3. Number 1, the biggest threat by far is habitat loss. As humans expand, their world shrinks. Next up is poaching for the illegal ivory trade, which is just brutal. And then, of course, these 2 things lead to the third problem. As elephants and people are pushed closer together, you get more and more conflict over resources like land and water.
You might look at this and think, well, that's a tragedy for the elephants. And it absolutely is. But the question is bigger than that. Why does their future matter so much to us and to the health of the entire planet? And here's the answer. Biologists call elephants a keystone species. Okay, picture a stone archway. The keystone is that one stone at the very top. If you pull it out, the whole arch collapses. That's what elephants are to their ecosystems. They're giant gardeners. They dig water holes that other animals depend on. They carve out paths in the forest that create new spaces for other life to thrive. If you take them out of the equation, entire ecosystems can unravel. So after all this, after seeing their incredible bodies, their tight-knit families, and their brilliant minds, we're left with this one absolutely critical question. How do we make sure that these intelligent social giants have a future that is every bit as big as they are?